And I just want to say thank you all for making the time. I'm Samira Sain. I'm the New York director of Common Sense. And I'm going to be talking, I'll introduce Giancarlo in a moment. Common Sense, as some of you may know, is an organization. We're a nonprofit, an international nonprofit dedicated to improving the lives of children and helping educators and parents during this time. And we are there for children's well-being, digital well-being around their use around technology, etc. We have special landing pages during the coronavirus for educators and parents, and you can go on the Common Sense site. We have some really amazing resources. And also, I'm now joined for this webinar with Giancarlo Pitocco. He's the founder of Purposeful
Good morning.
Wellbeing. Good morning. For the rest of this conversation, we're going to be calling it Purposeful, okay? And we can just say Common Sense, so that would be great. So we are in extraordinary times right now, and we're all living in this new reality all over the world, because I'm speaking to friends in Hong Kong and in India and all over the world. Everyone is staying home, doing most of their work with technology. I'd like to remind everyone on the call to ask questions and send them in. We have a chat feature. And I would like to reiterate that neither of us are giving medical advice. So this is just a conversation to provide guidelines. So Giancarlo, let's start with you. First of all, can you just tell me, you are the founder of Purposeful Digital Wellbeing. How are you handling technology yourself during these times?
Samira, thank you so much, first of all, for having me here today. It's a real honor and privilege to collaborate with you and Common Sense on events like this. And I know there's a lot of folks on this line who don't know who I am. And as Samira mentioned, I am the founder of Purposeful. It's a digital well-being practice that I developed after leaving Facebook and Instagram, where I worked and spent a career studying the way technology influences how we think, feel, behave, communicate. And now I use those powers for good, as I like to say, in engaging with families, teachers, parents, and helping them understand how to cultivate healthy habits and a better relationship with technology. You can find out lots more about the resources and online classes I'm offering right now on my website, purposeful.nyc. And I'm excited to share some of those insights right now. So to your question, Samira, right now I'm totally focused with my attention on activities that make me feel positive, healthy, and of service to others. This is an important time for us to rise up and do our parts to be of service to each other, whether it's the people in our immediate household or people in virtual sessions like this right now. My plan is to use technology for good. I'm not someone who believes that technology is inherently evil. And since I can't see people in person right now, outside of those that are under my roof, I've focused almost all of my communication on video chat like this, because it's way more nourishing for the human mind compared to just texting or emailing or even just plain old phone calls. So, and along with that, I'm staying off social media as much as possible, except when I have a clear intention or purpose for doing that, and avoiding TV news as much as possible because of all the filling of time they're doing with scaremongering and editorial that isn't really about the facts, when right now we need to be focused on what are the facts and what do I need to know to be healthy and safe with the people around us.
And these are great tips for families, because children react a lot to those red flashes all the time, like mine do, and I know other friends and our communities are saying, that how do we handle the news when it's constantly being thrown at us? I do want to take a second to acknowledge that we have two other Common Sense members from New York on this webinar. Tali Horowitz, who is our education director. You can't see them, but they are on. They'll be moderating questions. There you go. Hi, Tali. And Melanie, who is our associate in New York, and she does a variety of things, including moderating these great conversations. So do send in your questions. Giancarlo, my next question will be to you, and I know you're going to be asking me some questions too, so I'll have to have on. But how are you staying connected with your friends? You said you like to have those face-to-face conversations. Why is that more meaningful than looking down at a screen? What's the difference in your mind?
So as you know, I'm a big fan of Sherry Turkle's work, professor at MIT who studies human connection and all the forms that it may take. And one of the things that I love that she talks about is how our brains, most of the machinery that we have up here is evolved for processing much more than just the information that we communicate to each other through language. Our brains are really thirsty for the rich range of data that is communicated from a physical experience, like physical contact, gestures, tone of voice, facial expressions, pheromones, the whole 9 yards. And so there's this high bandwidth communication that our brains crave and are nourished by. And when we try to distill human interaction down to social media posts, likes, comments, or texts or email, we're stripping out so much of the mental and emotional nutrition that our psychology is dependent on. And so it's really important that we try to nourish ourselves as much as possible with the human contact that we have. So in a lot of my workshops and webinars, I teach about the social nutrition pyramid, which is how to build a healthy diet of social interactions. And there, especially during these times, when you can't be face-to-face with someone, I'm pushing people for visual contact with each other, because even though we can't, hug each other or touch each other, we wouldn't be able to do that in person anyway right now. We at least get the tone of voice and the facial expressions and the gestures, which is super important to me as an Italian person with a whole Italian family. Gestures are the name of the game for our communication. So that's really important. And then barring that, I recommend people, if you can't do video chat under these circumstances, or, maybe you didn't get dressed fully today and you don't want to share that with the world, you can opt for video chat, voice messages. So even if it's not a real-time call, most of our chat apps or text apps these days allow us to hold down the button and record a little message with our voice and shoot it off to someone, which is way better than just texting them, because they can hear that tone of voice and they can get a little auditory window into what's going on in your world, even hearing the background noises. And this has a positive psychological response for us that's way better than just shooting a text. So I encourage that over the other forms of comms that are just text-based, and saving those things more for logistics and coordination as much as possible.
True. Humans are social animals and we crave it. I'm beginning to see that in my own children. They've had so much, they've had more social media time, and they're beginning to react to it in a way. And their friends too. Like a lot of them are like, you're boring. And that's about 100 children. Like, you're not doing anything fun. And they're reacting to it and sort of moving toward the hug. Well, I can hug my kids. I don't think I can hug anyone else's kids. But anyway, so I think those are very good points. Our brain is wired to human connection and craving it in many ways.
Well, I'm wondering, along with that, what are some of the strategies that you're employing with your family? And I know you have kids of various ages. And so would love to hear about that, and maybe any of the common sense advice that you'd offer on top of that.
Well, thank you for asking that question. It's really important right now for me to parent well and use technology wisely. It can be used as a tool, and Common Sense has amazing resources. We have all of our regular lists of movies, etc., but we also have these amazing new pages during the coronavirus. I think we should be more sensitive to what our children are watching, and the editors at Common Sense have really reevaluated what books and lists children should be, and the conversations they should be having. We also have an amazing news literacy hub, because as we discussed earlier, breaking news alerts, if the TV is constantly on, a 9-year-old can really sort of absorb that into their, I see my 9-year-old reacts viscerally every time it's a breaking news flash, because she's old enough to know something's going on. They're all old enough to know that, and this would be relevant to even much younger children. We have, research shows that, all this constant nervous energy around it, our own anxieties. I have to manage my own anxieties as well. Just coming back to news for a minute, because we are all addicted to the news, waiting for the next thing. I just turn the TV on in the morning, in the afternoon, and then I like to check the news once in a while in the evening. And I'm having these conversations with the oldest children, and I know other families are too. We have this amazing news literacy hub. I love children to assess different news outlets, but I like them to be vetted. So our news literacy hub is really letting parents, the Common Sense News Literacy Hub, letting parents know that there's great organizations like Reuters, NPR, vetted organizations that provide facts. As you were talking about facts right now, kids should know the facts, and then we can have a critical analysis discussion about it. This is such a good time that we never had. We can use it as found time to have those meaningful conversations. And I love to go back to Common Sense, and they have these great questions you can ask your kids. So on the Common Sense website, we have amazing questions. But how do we handle it? It's being mindful, knowing each child, and making sure that there's enough tech time, but there's enough human connection too. And I like your idea of FaceTiming grandma as opposed to texting her. So.
Yes, she very much appreciates that.
I'm glad you know that. Okay, so I think that, we are getting some questions. So I do want to remind everyone that we will be answering questions roughly at the end. So, Common Sense Research, Giancarlo, you have worked, as you said, at Facebook and Instagram, and you obviously have quite a bit of knowledge about apps and technology, etc. Our research at Common Sense shows that children most of the time are using 3 to 4% of their time to create with technology. What are ways we can inspire our children without talking to them about it? How can we inspire them to be more creative during these times when they're spending 2 to 3x more time than they normally do?
So such a great question right now. Among the parents that I've talked to lately, one of the common refrains I hear is that their kids are complaining that they're bored. And even when they're plugged into their screens and looking at social media, you and I were talking about this the other day as well. Kids are saying they're bored because no one's posting anything interesting online right now. No one's doing anything interesting worth sharing. And they can't make plans with their friends through social media either to go meet up in person right now. So this is actually a really wonderful moment for parents to seize this opportunity and take the boredom of their kids and convert that into an opportunity for creativity. This situation has given us the gift of time and space to do things we normally wouldn't do and to get creative. And so one of the things to know about kids and all the coaching I do with parents on this sort of thing is that kids don't have the long-term view that we do in terms of, hey, the healthy habits I have now will pay off long-term. They need a little bit more of an immediate reward. Well, right now, their entire audience of friends online is bored and has nothing to do or see on social media. I would use this as an opportunity to tell your kids, your audience awaits you. How can you get creative? What are the ways you can entertain or make your friends laugh online? What are some fun ways that you can express your creativity or ideas that you have through social media? Be of service to your friends who are looking for meaningful ways to connect and feel your company and be entertained and feel like this isn't a dull day. So, one of my friends was talking about how his daughter is using Legos and a video camera to create stop motion films and put these online. And the amazing thing is people respond to this. Her friends are immediately coming back and liking these things and commenting on them and calling her and asking how to do it. And so she's now raised her profile in her friend group in a way that demonstrates the power of creativity and what happens when you make an effort to overcome boredom instead of sitting there and pouting about it or just scrolling endlessly, desperately looking for a fun meme or animated cat gif or something to keep you entertained right now. So this is something that I think is related to a call to action we all need to embrace right now, which is to not waste this opportunity. Yes, there's a challenge here. Yes, we're outside of our comfort zone and have to adapt and form new routines, but what a fabulous opportunity to do a little dance here, a little improvisation, and get creative in our lives, shake up the old routines, see what was irrelevant all along the way, and do something new and generative in the world.
Well, since we have a few people who've asked very relevant questions to what we're talking about right now, one of them, and I can possibly help with these, is this is a great question. Teens don't really use voice and video to connect, which is key to well-being. Are they at greater risk for depression or isolation, and are their usual social channels enough to stave it off? So one of the things I will say is we are not giving actual mental medical advice. We're just going to give you guidelines and tips, so we will try and answer that question within the realm of what we do. We're not doctors, and so I think the word depression always gets me as something that we should discuss with mental health professionals, and a lot of them are giving those resources for free. However, there are some pointers we can, as Giancarlo said, have more of those face-to-face connections. Use FaceTime, because a face-to-face conversation with your friend as opposed to a group text is much better and much healthier. So that will sort of take some of that edge off, just constantly looking at a screen. And I've done that. I've also noticed that children who spend too much time because they are spending more time, even if it's schooling and then going online to do their homework, they are getting a little bit, you can see that being reflected in their behavior. So they're organically craving that playtime, which is, I see that coming back. I'm not sure if it's it's common amongst all the parents, but children are naturally born to also interact with their parents. Giancarlo, do you have any, and their friends, their peer groups? Giancarlo, any advice on that?
You know, the pressure's on us right now as parents to step up our game a little bit. And that's one of the challenging things, on top of dealing with how maybe financial circumstances have changed. Maybe there are family members in the hospital. On top of that, we're working from home and our kids aren't at school during the day. And so we're juggling a lot. And so parenting skills are being tested. And when it comes to mental health, on top of that, we're in close quarters right now. There's no escaping each other. So this is a theme that's coming up again and again right now, as parenting skills are being challenged. And we have the choice to try and rise up and show up for our family and get curious and get involved in each other's lives. You know, there are families who are sitting in their living room together all day, all on their devices, living experiences that aren't in the present moment in that room. You as a parent can inquire about, what are you up to? How's your day going? What have you been doing online? And even that kind of connection can make someone feel the comfort of human connection in your house. And I strongly encourage parents to approach not from a place of judgment for device use, especially right now, but to approach with curiosity, the way one would approach your child's day, and asking, like, how was your day today, honey? What was going on? What did you get up to? How did it make you feel? And really have those deeper conversations, and connect on a more meaningful level beyond that. It's something that we have to rise to right now.
That's true. I think the role of the parent is very important right now. And the other thing that I know other people are doing, and I started doing it, is, you know, a game of charades. Like we used to play when we were all younger. It doesn't need props or a full chessboard or anything like that, although we have dusted off the chessboard and it's come back. Yes, we have to rise to the occasion and really engage our children. And I was speaking to someone yesterday who lives in Hong Kong. And I think I mentioned this when we opened, and she's been under quarantine for almost 8.5 weeks with us. She's a single mother of one child, and boy, she's had to rise to the occasion. And she's also the fastest woman in the world 8 times over to climb the 7 peaks. She has so much energy, and she and her daughter are doing hula hoop during cooking time. And, you know, she's teaching her daughter better table manners and good nutrition, and they're having fun together. Although she said it gets intense sometimes, but yes, you're right. So we have to be creative about our time together, and it doesn't always involve screen use. It could almost be like, this is the good time to put good measures in that may last and for a long time, right? And good habits.
Well, along with that, I'm wondering, like, how are you taking what common sense recommends around this and then applying that for your family and the way you guys are staying active and creative during this time of having to stay indoors?
Well, Common Sense, the editors of our editorial team has done an amazing job of curating exercise apps. So I use that for my kids. They're all age appropriate. They're fun. We do need to move our bodies because it's the mind-body connection is so important. And to anyone's point about depression, I can't answer this as a doctor, but I do know that when children are feeling listless after like 2.5 hours of, and yes, you can relax those times and measures you put into place. There is a question out there. We should be relaxed and not so hard on ourselves, because that creates anxiety, but also simple acts of moving your body. And if it's together or just teaching your child how to do it, it does alleviate some of that mental anxiety. That's just a common theme, and that we know. Of course, if there's risk of serious depression, that's a whole different realm that we are not qualified to. But simple acts of, and as I said, going back to our Common Sense resources, we have really great apps that we recommend. They're age appropriate, and they're very important at this time. I do think our work has never been more important than right now. When parents are really looking for that family movie that they can all watch together. If you have a 7-year-old at home and a 13-year-old, there are lists that the entire family can watch together and enjoy. And then questions you can ask yourselves afterwards, as you said, Giancarlo, you know, this is a time, we're not going to get it back. And either the time can use us or we can use the time, I think.
Exactly. Beautifully said, Samira.
Well, thank you. So should we go to a question? I know we're getting so many. Oh, so we have one for you. Love this conversation. One thing I'm going to do this weekend is a virtual tour of the Cincinnati Zoo with my son, Jagger, who's 4. And I think this is some advice for us. They're hosting every day at 3 p.m. As someone deeply concerned about the effects of tech and social media, I will say I found a number of inspired uses for it recently. So thank you, Alex. That's very kind of you. We have another question from Barbara. Teens and Snapchat. My daughter says she can be sure of who she's talking to on Snapchat. No chance of catfishing because you can see the person either live. Can you discuss it? I think she means can't. As a teen, it's hard to control Snapchat. Do you have any advice for her daughter? I think she's talking about, she can't be sure, actually. She cannot be sure about who she's talking to. So I think that would
Yeah.
just be being vigilant, and actually, like, there are privacy
Mm-hmm.
settings. Would you be able to discuss that?
So definitely be involved in your kids' use of technology online. This is not just for the current circumstances that we're in right now. It's really incumbent on parents to understand the technology that their family is using on a daily basis. And so we have to get involved. It's no longer enough to say, I don't understand how any of this works. My kids are using all these things and I just can't keep up. You know, the circumstances of society have changed, and we live in a technological world, and closing our eyes or our minds off to what's changing and the ecosystem that people are communicating through isn't an option anymore. Part of parenting is now staying on top of these things. And so I love that Barbara is here and asking these questions. It shows that she's engaged, and everyone on this line is doing their part right now to educate themselves on this. So, like, bravo to you. I wish there were thousands of people on this call wanting to hear about this right now. We have to level up and get engaged. And it's awesome that she's having these conversations, Barbara, that you're having these conversations with your daughter. I love this, and you need to get involved and share some of those moments. You need to respect privacy, you know, to some degree, but also show that you're engaged, and do some homework with your daughter on, like, what are the risks here and what is her experience like? Have her share some of these things, and who are the people that you're meeting? Tell me about them. What's something they did that made you laugh? How do you feel when you talk to them? You know, all these kinds of things. It starts there. And with technology in general right now, we need to accept, per Alex's comments as well, that technology is not just an inherently evil thing. Like, there is technology that's designed without our best interests in mind. Social media is definitely designed to be habit forming. There's no question about that. There's proof, and I was inside the companies that are building that technology. I've read the internal memos about it. They're building it to form habits that aren't in our best interests. And so we have to be mindful of that, but we can choose to use this technology for good, whether it's using Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook or real-time video broadcasts from the zoo, or librarians reading books to kids in their local community virtually. These are wonderful, powerful uses of technology while we're in this situation where, aren't we lucky that this is happening at a time where, while we're under lockdown, we can have these big group conversations. We can stay in touch with people we love. We can hear each other's voices, see each other's faces, have virtual happy hours and family dinners across countries, across the globe. I was on an event the other day that was over 1,000 people meditating together and listening to an inspiring talk about how to get through these times with emotional stability and a sense of groundedness inside. And we need to do that work. I know it can sound like fluffy when everyone wants hard facts right now, but your whole reality stems from your mindset. And right now we can choose a mindset of doom, gloom, and fear, which is what the media is really pushing on us right now, or we can choose to see this as an opportunity to rise up and spend our time in a way that makes us feel proud when we look back on this, and for the rest of our lives, tell the story of, how did I pass the time during this period? So something.
So I have there's a great question. I also want to thank you. That was very important. And yes, we have to be mindful that this is this unusual time. And so we do have to there are questions around screen time limits. Everyone has to do what's right for every family. So there are questions about is FaceTime right if someone's, is it okay to FaceTime a grandmother who's very ill? Because that might, cause anxiety. Should it be a phone call? Yes. Every family is different. We don't have a blanket. As long as they can hear her voice and she can hear theirs, I believe that we should make the decision that's right for our own families. There's also another great question, and you and I can both weigh on this. This is a very, very good question. There's a point at which all this online stuff gets too much. So my advice is, as someone who works at Common Sense, is that factor in that move time, factor in that game time, dust off that old Jenga board. And even if it doesn't have every single piece, make do with it. These are those times, have those, maybe you watch the news and then analyze it for your child, so that just say, hey, because kids know something is going on. So those conversations, those face-to-face conversations we did not have time for. now is the time to do it. And that is an antidote to the excessive learning apps, etc. There are books, we have great lists of books, and children should be reading as well. And that's something that we know that from Common Sense Research, one of our latest research reports shows that teens and tweens are reading less and less for pleasure. And some say that it's like 39% of tweens or teens read less than once a month for pleasure. So let's pull out the books, and everyone has a few books at home, even one or two. So we could get to those books, read with your child. This is a time for connection. And I would say again, let's not let the time use us. Let's use that time. Giancarlo, anything for you? Any comments on these great questions we're getting?
Oh, no, beautifully said right there. It's so true. We have to make sure we're using this time in a helpful way. And when it comes to, how do I adapt this to my circumstances? Well, you said to use FaceTime, but is that appropriate for this situation that my family uniquely has? At the end of the day, what I tell everyone is that digital well-being stems from having a use of technology that is in line with your needs, your values, and your aspirations. So if there's a need for emotional well-being and stability, and there are certain visuals that FaceTime might bring into your home and into your consciousness that's not necessarily the right thing for you right now, you get to make that call. Like you said, Samira, we're offering the guidelines and the frameworks to get folks started, but everyone must use their best judgment on these things. And
That's
it's
right.
not about every single interaction must be this certain way. It's taking a broader perspective of how you're spending your time with technology, how you're spending the time with your family day to day, and making sure that you're intentional with that time. And that on the whole, of course we're going to do texting, of course we're going to email. It's a convenient thing to do, but you don't want that to become the primary way you stay in touch with people right now. From a nutrition perspective for your heart and mind, and comparing that to physical nutrition, that would be like trying to sustain yourself off of Doritos, junk food, and dessert. That's what social media and texting is. It's all the nutrients are stripped out. It's just the fats, oils, and sweets, and we should be using those things sparingly. So it's on the whole, and sometimes it's more appropriate to do a voice call, like you said, in real time versus FaceTime. So these are fantastic questions, and I'm so glad we're having this conversation with such a thoughtful group of people. These are the moments that make me really happy and inspired about the work that we're doing.
Well, thank you. And you know what? There are some questions. I do want to say that we have reviews about apps and what's age appropriate. Really be careful about, it's not okay for, for a 6-year-old to be on Snapchat, for example. We have we have great guidelines, and we should, Common Sense has great app reviews. And if a child is on TikTok, you could actually, if you put their real age in for certain apps, they will make it appropriate. They will actually strip off most of those things. And these are the times when your child is begging for it. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying go out and get it, but I'm saying that if the children are already on it, check those privacy settings, and then maybe the family can do a family TikTok video, because it's okay. And if you're all doing it together, or just a video, for example, one of my plans for this is to take all of our photographs and have the children put it to music by month, and have these. And so again, create mode, if you will. So creating those, and we can do it together. These are things we never had time for. I would say 98% of families in this country have with children 8 and under, have some form of mobile device in their house. Those could be used wisely. Any thoughts on that?
Well, it's so true. These things need to be used wisely. We need to not just be reactive to the technology that's in our homes and in our lives and what's happening. We need to respond to the need of the moment and the time. How can we use technology in big or small ways to help bring us together in a meaningful way, to raise the mood of our home environment? So, we can't control our environment ever, really, but we lack a variety of environment right now. We're stuck in our homes, and for some people, that's really devastating. They're really affected by their surroundings, and they're craving the variety they typically have. And so it's just so important right now that we think about, are there ways we can use this technology in our homes to create an environment that feels healthier, it uplifts our mood? Music is a big part of that. I talk about this a lot in my online events and workshops, teaching people how to cultivate habits that generate energy wherever you are, and so that we feel less dependent on our circumstances to make us feel good. But what are the habits and practices and mindsets we can put in place to feel better? Because when we as parents feel better, we show up better, we lead better, we set a better example. And so it's really important that we find those ways. So, if it's Spotify or iTunes and creating a shared family playlist that everyone contributes fun, dancey, inspiring, makes you want to sing in the shower kind of music, and just have a regular habit of putting that on in the home, it's a wonderful way to shift the mood of the environment and to add a little fun and playfulness to it, thanks to technology, where we have access to the world's archive of music and culture. It's incredible what we can bring in our home and shape the mood of that environment through technology. I'm very thankful for that every day.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely correct. And also, I was just speaking to a developmental pediatrician, and he said to me, there was this old Buddhist story about this raft, and if everyone on the raft was freaking out, the raft sank. But if one person stayed calm, and everyone else benefited from that calm, and the raft stayed afloat. And that kind of, we should all keep that mental image in our minds. And with that, we have an amazing question. Common Sense has a great curriculum and education curriculum on digital well-being, K through 12. And there's a teacher here who's asking a fabulous question. And actually, she's given us some advice. She says, this is from, I haven't got your full name here, but as a teacher who's now being asked to teach via technology, again, a great use of technology, we can continue to educate as much as we can. She says, I'm very consciously creating lessons that might begin with online screen time, that's watching a video or something, to introduce a concept or share some instruction, but I always conclude with an invitation to go and engage, not online, but through their own investigation, exploration, and creation in response to their online time. So that's such an important lesson for us as we all embark on this virtual learning, is to kick off that online exploration. I mean, the offline exploration, right? Would you have a response to that?
Yeah, I'm seeing that come up across a few of the questions that are scrolling on my screen here. How do we use technology wisely? How do we use it for good? How do we educate ourselves? There are Ivy League universities that are offering free courses online. If you go to Coursera, I don't know the exact domain name, but Google Coursera, and you can use technology for education and leveling up right now. It's a really amazing thing. You can curate your social media feeds. I'm teaching an event this weekend that shows you how to totally change what shows up and what content is coming into your home through your social feeds, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn. There are ways, without unfollowing people, to totally craft what is the composition of your newsfeed, and using it more for uplift, inspiration, creative ideas, humor, rather than the churn of people that are like fussing and frustrated and maybe being negative and all of that. But this is an opportunity to do that.
Well, that's really well said. I agree. And I actually signed up for a Coursera class on as an adult. I signed up for a master literature class from Harvard, which I think they're doing more to put things out for free, which I think is so important. And then, we can all avail of this as adults. And then coming back to children, our Common Sense curriculum is very adaptable for the virtual classroom. So we hope that teachers and even parents, to an extent, can take avail of some of our lessons. Like there's an amazing lesson we have called The Power of Words. And it's a video, and then we talk about we have to stop, pause, and think. And then we have this great activity which we can even do at home, because it's we're all using the screen to communicate. But how do we be kind and how do we be thoughtful? So I can put a skipping rope or a line down, or any piece of rope down the any room, and have the kids and shout out commands and say, hey, if you think what I'm saying is nice or kind, or then stay on this side. But if you think I'm being not so nice or not so kind, then jump. And then, as the commands get more nuanced, and these are all lessons on the Common Sense education website, then don't jump. So what you see is kids are halfway, they're thinking about jumping because the nuance comes in. And then we say, all right, everyone stop. Here's what you need to do. If you even think that it's not okay, or even if you're thinking about jumping, don't say it. And that this is a time for us to reflect, because cyberbullying is such a big issue. Adults are guilty of it. Even if they don't know and they're not aware. So this is a time for us to all step back and think about our actions, because so many of our actions and words are online. Any comment to that, Giancarlo?
Yeah, I mean, I so appreciate what you guys put out there. The curriculum is fantastic. The resources are the number one thing that I refer people to when they're looking for inspiration of, hey, how do we level up our understanding of safe ways to use this platform? What's the kind of content we should be subscribing to? How can we use social media more safely and effectively and to bring us joy rather than to get stuck in that rabbit hole of endless scrolling? And the curriculum that you guys offer is so powerful, and the resources. I just love what you're putting out there right now for the current circumstances in terms of the whole list of events that you can participate in right now online, great streaming content for entertainment that is like family friendly, kids safe. You can break down like all the criteria and find something that's suitable for your family in creating these moments. I mean, Common Sense, I didn't mean for this to be an infomercial. I genuinely like feature you guys heavily in all my work. It's just fantastic. Like, the answer to any question that folks have right now around the general use of these things, education, or great media to have in your home right now is on the Common Sense website. Go there. You're going to hear this from me again and again if you come to any of my webinars or attend any of my master classes online. Like, you guys are the best resource out there right now, in person or online. It's crazy to me. You guys have been doing this for like 16 years now, and no one else has risen to the level of resources across a wide range of needs, both for educators and parents. Like, it's the one-stop shop. And boy, I hope you're seeing a huge uptick in use of those things right now, because since we're using technology more than ever, we need to know how to use it healthfully more than ever, because our diet has shifted from a mix of in-person and digital to almost entirely digital. So we better make sure we're getting maximum nutrition and psychological benefit from that during this time.
Well, we appreciate the shout out. You know, we have an amazing team, as I said, of researchers, educators, editors who are working round the clock. In fact, sometimes when you talk to them, they're just tired because they're just like they're working round the clock, and their calling is to make sure the best resources are out there. And I thank them every single day, because, you know, I'm in the thick of it with a wide swath of range of children and ages. But we have a great question. Lisa Solomon is asking, for parents of male teenagers who are not as great as connecting and can be more apt to isolate, any tips and ideas? Well, Lisa, I have 2 boys, and I can say that, you know, yes, of course, boys like to, one of my boys has set up a whole game room in his room. He's got a PlayStation, a computer, etc. But it's up to me to like pull him out. And we've started reading a book together, and we're workshopping and book clubbing it. And then he got his friends to join. So by, you know, now we've done this. I'll give you the name of the book. It's Catcher in the Rye. But he's a teenager, so he's allowed to read it. But, you know, yes, so it's important for us. Again, parenting comes in. It's important to say, hey, you know, yes, you are isolating, and it's about knowing your child. And this is also a great time to get to know our children better. Of course, if there's as I said, again, we're not giving any medical advice and mental health advice on this chat. It is absolutely just parental guidelines and advice like you'd get at a parent talk. But we're obviously not able to do those right now. So what we're trying to do is say, get to know your child. And if you see they're retreating further into a bubble and isolating, then, you know, do that thing. Even if it's tossing with teenage boys, I'm hearing from other parents that they just take a ball and toss it during dinner. Like, just toss that ball. I've never met a boy who doesn't want to keep throwing a ball. There might be some who don't, or, you know, a child who doesn't want to like do something silly with mom. I don't know. There's always time. And I think this is the time to break down old habits and create new ones that might stay for a while. But Giancarlo, do you want to have any words on that? Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fantastic. Engaging them on a more intellectual and emotional level through literature. What a powerful way to do that. Is there film and other media that can do that too? It's testing our parenting skills, right? And so when it comes to this specific question, this is a situation in which I'm going to refer parents to level up their skills by seeking out a professional in psychology, and engaging them either for direct advice to the parent or for the child in having some of those breakthroughs. That's definitely not my department, but the kinds of tactics you're talking about, that's what I've heard from the parents that I work with have worked really well. And there are a number of ways to do that, but sometimes it really does help having the external point of reference, like a form of literature, like you mentioned Catcher in the Rye, as a way to break open some of those deeper conversations. But beyond those kinds of tactics, I'm going to refer people to the mental health professionals that spend all day helping to create those kinds of emotional breakthroughs. It's really important that we invest in our mental health right now, our psychological health right now, and that might mean investing some money in a great psychologist or other mental health professional.
And I believe some of them are offering it, like really good ones are actually offering it for free, which is interesting during these times. There are places, of course, we're not the source for that. There are other sources, and we suggest that you find those out. We have a great question from Georgie. We should be mindful, and it is true, while we're relaxing some rules around, strict tech times, it'll be hard to reverse those new habits and behaviors when we return to the new normal, which is back to school and back to life. One of the suggestions is that coming from a mom who's been in this situation for 8 weeks, she's a single mother with one child. She has set very strict schedules. And she said, if you set a schedule for yourself and your child, that is very reassuring to everyone to have that time. And then kids know. And then, of course, it's, again, up to our parenting skills. So maybe that one hour of screen time that you might have had at your house, Georgie, would have been, you might have made it 1.5 hours. But at the same time, if your child knows this is the schedule and this is a great moment to talk to your child. Those 1,000 one-minute conversations have never been more important. And I love Tali is always reminding us of this in our parent talks. So Tali, I'm channeling you right now when you say, you give me this great advice, and to all the parents is have those 1,000 one-minute conversations. The best thing we have right now is time. We're not getting in the car to go anywhere. We're not rushing around for all those other things. So we have time. So let's invest that in our children. So it's a really good point. If you relax your rules from 1 hour to 6 hours, I would say, yes, Houston, we might have a problem. But went from 1 to 2, and you tell your child, look, we are in unusual times, and this is the news. This is what's happening. You're not hanging out with your friends. The time will reverse in some ways. I think organically, children have to and want to play sports, or go to their dance class, or go to even to hang out with their friends, just downstairs. They're missing their friends. They're going to crave that face-to-face connection. But Giancarlo, you're all about purposeful. What do you think of that response?
Oh, I mean, fantastic. We're always on the same page with this sort of thing, just coming at it from different life experiences. One of the things that I love, this idea that we talked about the other day, is setting up your child or children with different tutors or experts in different subjects, and lining up Skype calls with them for an afternoon. And, especially if you're working from home or have other responsibilities as a parent where your attention is somewhat divided by necessity, and you can't be fully present with the kids all the time, even for the youngest of them, getting them set up with a piano teacher and a coach for school, a coach for a tutor, or a coach if they're on a sports team, and lining up these sessions and working with other families in the community to set these up, and have your kid engaged in the community, engaged with leaders that are helping them use this time really well. We've said this earlier on the call, and you and I have talked about this separately. We don't want to treat this special gift of time we've been given as a moment where we need to figure out how to pass the time. This is a really wonderful gift. How many times have we all said, if we had the time to work on that project, or do this activity with our family, or learn this new skill or new thing? Hey, that moment has arrived for a lot of us, especially for the folks that are sitting on this call right now. I'm hoping that most of you are in a safe, healthy environment where you have the privilege to join and up-level your knowledge right now. Let's use this time to be of service to others as much as we can from a safe distance, and level up our parenting skills and level up the quality of environment of our family in our homes. And so engaging our children in the community right now, or with experts, teachers, coaches, mentors that can level them up, is a wonderful way to create a period of time every day or a couple times a week where they're engaged in that world, and you can be engaged with your colleagues or your work, or tending to other important things that you need to tend to. I think that's just a wonderful way to think about adding some structure to the day, which, by the way, is one of the things that all mental health professionals are recommending right now. Is it's so important, since we don't have the daily grind or whatever the daily normal routine is to set the agenda for us, which, by the way, isn't great to think of it like that. We now have to set the agenda ourselves. And we have this power all the time, but this situation is showing us what happens when we don't consciously plan the way we're going to spend our time tomorrow and don't put some structure around our days. We suffer. Everything starts to blur together. You may find yourself today wearing the same outfit you wore yesterday and the day before. It might also be your pajamas that you slept in last night.
Yeah, by the way, I think we wore the same shirt yesterday on our pre-call. I didn't want to man up. We have to laugh.
You called me out. I also put cologne on for you guys, so I hope you appreciate that. And I'm still shaving. It's really important that we maintain these kinds of habits to feel good. And so it goes a long way. A little bit of structure, some self-care, and being regimented, even though we don't have maybe as many meetings on our calendar, we don't have a commute to worry about, we're not sending our kids off to school. We need to be responsible for creating the structure that supports us and gets us through this time, especially since we don't know how long we're going to be in this situation. So start cultivating those healthy habits now. Treat this as an opportunity to level up. See the challenge as an opportunity to get creative and test your adaptation. You're going to be stronger for it on the outside of this, and you're going to look back on this time feeling really good about how you showed up.
Absolutely. And also, whenever children say that they're bored with their social media, I think it's a great time to talk to them about find a cause, support a cause. It also makes them look inside and find what they value. And I'm like, why don't you create something or find something or create a chat group amongst your friends on a cause? If you care about animals, this is a good time. If you want to collect cans and just drive past the food pantry and drop some things off, or make this about, hey, you're not getting your birthday present this year because people around you are suffering so much. If you're blessed and you have resources and you're healthy, then it's a great way for your child to think and help and feel that they're part of, serving and service, I think. So there's a lot of ways. If your child is online, there are many ways for them to use that time or use some of that time to think of a way to serve the community and their world as they get older, and when we come out of this crisis and this really, really unusual time. And I think that the planet needs resources too. And, if your child, conservation and the planet, that's something that all kids are aware of. We have a very young person who's been, talking about it, and, they could be reading her book. They could be, following her and thinking about things. And these are seeds that could be sown now, which are normally full of homework assignments and tests and sports practice and things like that. Well, guess what? This is the time to sow the seeds of growing great individuals who care about more than just their winning the next medal or, just it's a much broader concept, I think.
Amen. So true and beautifully said. What a wonderful way to think about this time. If your kids are feeling bored and some of the other tactics we talked about aren't suitable, what about exploring ways to have impact outside the four walls of your house? And there's an amazing effect that can happen if they could see the results of their impact through their efforts in the home now, and through researching and rallying friends to maybe jump in with them on something that they're passionate about. Even just, I was hosting a session the other day, and one of the parents who participated offered this idea that they use in their home, which is anytime the kids are asking to use a device for an extended period of time, she says, sure, you can, but while you're using that device, you need to learn 5 new things. So, and I want to hear about what you learned after you use that device. And they talk about time limits and everything and what they're ultimately trying to do while they're on the device. But they treat it as an opportunity where it's like, hey, have some of your vegetables while you enjoy that dessert. And it may not be dessert. Maybe they're watching, educational videos online, but they're probably chatting with their friends. Yeah. And a build on that I see a fantastic question here from someone that didn't share their full name. How should one balance over scheduling or over structuring their time? Is there an ideal amount of structured time? And this is something that I'm doing a whole masterclass on next week. One of the key habits to creating a healthy home environment at this time. And we're going to dive deep into how do you actually map out the day in advance, or the week in advance, and plan an appropriate amount of structured time and really block out time for all the important activities that you, thinking ideally about your time, how do you want to spend it over the course of the week and over an individual day. And a key piece of guidance around, well, how do I know if this is too much or this is right? We're so obsessed with getting things right and not making mistakes. That's the wrong attitude, especially to have right now while we're doing improvisation and figuring out what a new normal is, it's really important to treat this as an experiment or a beta test. You're doing your research. Try structuring your day in one way, see how it makes you feel and how it supports you. And same thing for your family members. Plan out that time, try it out, see how it goes. Did it serve you? Was it realistic? Was it too much? Was it too little? Was it too ambiguous? Did we need to get more specific? Do the research. And so I think it's really important, you know, if parents are doing this together, treating it as an opportunity, hey, on Monday, we're going to set the agenda for the week and plan out our days. We'll make some adaptations along the way as circumstances change. And then at the end of the week, we're going to check in and we're going to review. How did this go? Some parents I talk to, we do this on a daily basis. So same way Ben Franklin did it. He would begin his day by asking him, what good shall I do this day? And he had a map of how he was going to spend his day. And at the end of the day, he would ask himself, what good have I done this day? And
Right.
what a powerful technique, dead simple for us to be using right now. Come into your day intentionally before you jump into the list of to-dos for the day, if you have them right now. I know some people are, maybe leaning more towards the Netflix and chill all day, which may not be the best thing. You deserve some Netflix and some entertainment, but add some structure and use some little techniques, which I'll get into a ton in my events, just how to start planning your day and experimenting with that right balance. It's going to be different for everyone, but thinking in chunks of like self-care, getting work done, taking care of the home and the family, high quality leisure time,
Yeah.
self-care and solitude, even if it's just 5 minutes a day to ground yourself and like, how am I feeling? How does my body feel? What's going on in my mind? Maybe, when you wake up in the morning, doing a little journaling. By the way, like there aren't a lot of blanket recommendations I make to everyone, but one that I'll offer here to everyone right now for your mental health and sanity. Don't let your phone be the first thing you look at when you wake up in the morning. Give yourself some buffer time. I'm really going to encourage you to start with at least 15 minutes, but urge you to increase that every day, friends.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I turn the TV on? Well, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But I think what you're trying to say, Giancarlo, is let's all be kind to ourselves too. Yes, I agree. It's like, and being kind to ourselves means different things for different people. Some people might have to, jump to their phone, but you're right. Even 2 minutes or a minute before you jump to your phone isn't too much. A minute of saying, all right, that's the device and that's my day that's going to start. Let's just first look into ourselves and give ourselves that respect. And if we don't give ourselves that respect, we can't give our day, our colleagues and our children, our families that respect. So distance yourself from what's going to cause stress. And also, so many people are asking about schedules, and I agree, like we have to be at this point kind to ourselves because we're still all in the beginning of figuring things out. As I said, I spoke to my friend who's 9 weeks into this with a bracelet, and if she steps out outside her house, the police will put her in jail, and she's a single mother in Hong Kong, and she had a sense of humor about her, and she's 8 or 9 weeks in with no end in sight. So I have to say that listening to her last night, and her sort of demeanor was, well, I'm going to make even dinner into and she's a single mom with one child. Dinner is a time when my daughter and I are going to discuss nutrition. And that's a lifelong lesson she's learning, right? So it's the kindness and the kind of being aware of these little moments where you can engage with your family, with your friends, with people. And it's the kindness and letting go of those rigid rules that we always have. It's like, this is a time to say, okay, maybe we all need to step back. And if we're lucky enough, and those who are healthy and can afford to do this, is to take those few minutes that Giancarlo was saying, just to be mindful about the rest of your day. It might go a lot better. And of course, there are stresses. You turn on the TV and there'll be some new news flash. But if we have that inner calm, we might be able to handle those, I would say those jellyfish moments, like when you're swimming in the water and jellyfish bites you, those jellyfish moments, better, I think. There's a panelist, by the way, I'm sorry, someone who's joined us, and because these are all abbreviated names, I believe, so I'm struggling with 3 kids who are in kindergarten, 5th and 8th grade. I have no time for myself, same days over and over, really tiring. She's just making a comment. I guess engagement might be the key. Well, Giancarlo, you're welcome to answer this, but my simple advice would be, it's very difficult to know that we can replicate our days and the way we were. We can't make it the same as what it was, say, a few weeks ago. It's different. It's a new world. So once you start being kind to yourself and accepting that it is going to be a bit of a struggle, especially as we adapt to this new schedule. It's very important. So take the time, and everyone is aware of the fact. My friend who's got a 12-year-old said it's not the same schooling, and the school is aware of it. It's not going to be the same. And if your child and a kindergartner isn't having a great day of remote learning, or isn't having the best day, maybe they just need a hug from their mom. I mean, that's just a way to do it. And that's just saying to yourself, it's okay if they're not having a great day. I know it's easier said than done. It's so much easier said than done. But Giancarlo, any advice for this lovely lady here?
I mean, this is the kind of person I want to talk to one-on-one and see what the situation really is, because if we're not carving out time, even 5 minutes a day, to resource ourselves, pour some energy back into ourselves, then we're not going to be a resource to those around us. You can't pour from an empty cup, as they like to say. And so, I'm wondering what a typical schedule is like for this person. How is the time being spent every day, and where can we adjust some habits to carve out some time for herself or himself to take care of themselves? So, I mean, it sounds like they're going above and beyond to teach and care for these 3 children. I mean, first of all, bravo, like you're one of the, call it first responders of this situation. You're on the front lines of taking over and stepping up and leading in a way you might not have had to lead before. And that's huge. And you need to acknowledge that you're doing a lot right there. And that might be, a price you pay now, but makes you stronger later. But really, I'd love to find some ways to carve out a little bit of time for you every day. Everyone can find 5 minutes in their schedule. I've talked to surgeons and emergency room specialists and experts that work there, talking about how their self-care routine. I mean, they're on call all the time now. Like, it's crazier than they've ever seen in their entire lives. They know the importance of carving out a little time for themselves in the morning, because even just the mental, emotional toll of doing that work, not to mention the physical and working multiple shifts and around the clock, they know how important it is to do their job well. When lives literally depend on it, they're making their time for that sort of thing. They know how important that is. I'm not saying that everyone in hospitals are doing that, but people that are truly on the front lines of the health crisis itself are still finding that time. We need to be able to find that time for ourselves to be leaders and responders in our own homes.
Well, Giancarlo, thank you so much. I know we're about to wrap up. If anyone has any last minute questions, we have a great, people are sending great resources, curve.mit.edu, online resources for when you're stuck at home. I guess these are for adults, not for children. So, as parents right now, I find that it's very useful to know that there's a lot of resources to help me. So then I can go out and help my children and also use all of our common sense resources. As I said, we are really working very hard to adapt to this time. And some of our lists are evergreen, like, great movie night lists and great book lists. I mean, books are not counted as screen time, even though they are a form of media. It was very interesting. In my first Common Sense, when I first joined Common Sense, there was a question that went out to say that what was the oldest time when people got worried about children being addicted to media? And that was when a book series came out, and now we're so grateful for the book series. And so if we think about it, people have always been worried about how much is too much. And reading, there's never been a better time to read. Whether it's online, libraries I know are now doing virtual, like they're sending out virtual cards and saying, hey, you can join the library. And if a child is reading, have you finished all the books in your house, and a child has joined the library and is reading virtually, they're still reading. And that's a great way. And then the Common Sense lists of movies, apps, and especially during these times, our news literacy resources, and for educators, our curriculum is fantastic. And then we have amazing experts like Giancarlo with Purposeful, who's really given us incredible advice. So, we will continue to talk to parents and children and educators. This is an ongoing time. Giancarlo, any thoughts to wrap up? We have 2 minutes, so.
I just want to thank everyone for carving out time in a day where you're probably juggling a lot more than you've ever had to juggle before as parents. So thank you for doing this service for yourself and for your family. I hope you'll take the knowledge that was shared here today and turn it into practice. It's not enough to just learn. It's about taking that knowledge integrating it and applying it for yourself and for your family through your daily habits and mindset. So that's what this is all about. And you know, the Common Sense platform is a tremendous resource for learning the knowledge, getting resources, there are activities for understanding how to apply it into your life. That's why I refer to it so much in my work and have studied it myself to level up in areas where I'm not as familiar. So definitely make great use of that and the resources that folks have been throwing out here. And if you want to go a layer deeper and taking this knowledge into practice, I'm offering a masterclass next week that you can sign up for, which is about taking knowledge, like you've already invested an hour of your time in learning these things. Don't waste that sunk time not putting it into practice. So if you want help in actually applying this in your life, head over to my website. We're going to be doing a lot more of this stuff this weekend and next week, purposeful.nyc. I really want to help people get through this time in a way that they're able to thrive and not feel like this was an immense sacrifice. I mean, if we could see the good in things and the plus side of this, we're all going to be better off. So let's agree as a group here on this call right now to use this time in a way that will make us all proud.
That's a very good way to end it. And I will give a shout out to our website. It's all free. Our resources are free. www.commonsense.org. And then you can scroll through and find what's appropriate for you. And then we have, you know, amazing people like Giancarlo, and we will continue to have conversations like this one. So, you know, where Common Sense is here in every way to support you through this tough time. Giancarlo, thank you for your time. Melanie and Talia, I know you've been amazing working around the clock to get this ready. So thank you guys. I know we can't see you, but you're there. If we didn't get to all of your questions, we will in some way or form figure out how to answer some of the most pressing ones that we didn't get to. But thank you, Giancarlo. And
thank you, Samira.